Hey, what's up, guys? My name is Brady Adams, and this is my research presentation. The topic that I chose to research for this essay is that athletes should be encouraged to use their platforms to promote social justice change, such as protesting for things they believe in. Making a statement like athletes do on the field when fighting for these issues is a big statement made by some of the more powerful people in the sports world. So if it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, all the team sports, the unity that those teams create. It leaves a longer lasting impact for people who are either uneducated or just they don't pay enough attention to these issues that these athletes are trying to bring to light and put them into the mainstream media. Kids, let alone anyone, they all look up to these players as larger than life figures. Your favorite player is somebody that you look up to, you aspire to be like. Um, Being able to see these players stand up for what they believe in gives younger people more confidence to share their voice and inspire them to go out and fight for these issues in their communities, just like these players are standing up for what they believe in on the field of play. I feel like Colin Kaepernick really took the opportunity that was presented to him as a football player, as a star quarterback, and ran with it. I mean, he knew how big of a stage he was on when he took a knee for the first time, protesting um, police brutality, um, or protesting the police actions. Um, he knew what he was doing, and he knew how much of an impact that it would have not only on his fellow teammates or the people on the opposing sideline, but players all around the league, on every team, and in other sports, um, and the people who were at the stadium, and the people who were at home watching as fans. Everybody was impacted by that because they saw history being made. They saw something that had never been done before being done. So I was just doing a casual stroll through the internet, looking up keywords, phrases such as Colin Kaepernick's impact or why should sports protests be normalized. Thankfully, I came across this article, and the article that I decided to use as a good source, and one that I will be 100% including in my essay without question, is an article titled The Awakening of Colin Kaepernick. It talks about how no matter what Colin Kaepernick did, um, a political discussion was going to arise from the day that he took the knee for the first time. When doing this in a country where a man such as Donald Trump, where lots of things have been said on his part about different social justice movements, social justice groups, issues, a man like that as president, of course political discussion is going to arise. And a league like the NFL, well, actually, it's a fact, the NFL is the most conservative group of team owners out of the four major sports, out of football, baseball, basketball, and hockey. 7 out of the 32 owners in the National Football League donated at least $1 million to Trump's campaign Trump's administration, Trump's campaign back in 2016 when he was gaining money to run for election, to run for president. Um, However, that's beside the point. That doesn't really matter. But after Kaepernick took his famous knee, he was demoted to backup quarterback, and he was released from his team, which was the San Francisco 49ers at the time. He sadly never ended up getting another job after his protests, or after he got released from the 49ers because of his protests. Right now, he lives in New York. He doesn't really talk about his knee. He doesn't really talk about that, because he has thought that it's never really been about him. He knows what he did, and he knows that the message got across because of the way that people reacted to it. He doesn't want the spotlight on him. That wasn't his intention. He wanted the spotlight to be on his protest and the things that he's protesting for or protesting against. He wants those issues to come to light. Because he doesn't care about the spotlight, like I said, and he wants the issue that he's protesting against to be the focus of the conversation, not him. And the thing that makes this, in my opinion, that makes this piece of evidence so impactful and so informative, and the best one that I've found, is that it focuses on one of the reasons why this argument is proven to be true, or I think it's proven to be true. Colin Kaepernick showed that he was willing to lose his career over these issues that are so important to him, so important to people like him, so important to people who believe the same thing as him. He proved that it really is just a game at the end of the day, and life can't change without people willing to throw something away that they've worked so hard for to be able to change it. To really protest at your fullest, to fight for what you believe in to the fullest, you need to be willing to throw everything away, because you need to show that that's what really matters. Back yourself up, back your protest up. On the other hand, switching to the bad articles, not bad articles, but article I'm not using. Well, I was looking for search terms, the same kind of search terms, to try and find counter arguments about why athletes shouldn't be allowed to protest. Just so I was able to see both sides of the coin, I came across an article titled "Protest Not Welcome in a Sports Spectacle." Sounds like a good source. Kind of sounds exactly like the counter argument that I'm trying to find. The title was the exact type of thing that I was looking for at that time, and I was wrong. I was very, very wrong. The source didn't really focus on sports at all. Did not focus on the athletes. It really, really focused on the political side of it. And although that's a good thing to focus on and a good aspect, that's not really the point that I'm trying to make, And it came from a political news source. It wasn't a sports news source. So I feel like it was kind of out of their comfort zone to be talking about the issues. And that's when I realized that, of course, it's not going to be about sports because it's a political news source, So I felt like that kind of knocked the credibility just right out of the gate if I'm looking for a sports source before I even started reading it. The problem wasn't that it was a bad article, because it wasn't. It really wasn't. It's just it was way too opinionated and not factual enough for me to feel like it was balancing the source in a biased way. It really leaned heavily towards one side, not because of facts, which they used, because they didn't really use facts, but because of the opinions they used. They didn't really use quotes. It was just because the other article had quotes from Colin Kaepernick, quotes from former teammates, coaches. This one did not have any of that. There were no quotes. The article also wasn't super specific. It talked about how Trump was a big reason for these issues becoming mainstream, or President Trump, and not focusing on the player side of it and not their protests, which I feel like wasn't a smart move for me to use it. I shouldn't use it because I'm not centering in on an issue on politics. I'm centering in on an issue on sports. I don't feel like I'd be able to use this source confidently because it doesn't really connect enough on the topics that I want to hit. Like all the targets I want to hit, it doesn't really hit those. It doesn't really help me hit those while writing this paper, presenting this topic, presenting my argument, backing up my argument. And it wasn't a bad article. It just wasn't the right fit for what I'm talking about. That's just what it is. I mean, going through these sources, I realized that fully looking and reading through these sources is very important. Take the source that I'm not going to be using as a good example. Based off the title of the source, you'd think it would be a good contradicting statement, a good counter-argument, a good point that I'm trying to get across. However, while I continued to read the article, the farther and farther I got into it, the more and more it seemed like to be trailing away from the point that I was trying to make in the counter-argument, To be honest, I'll be honest. I was a kid who would just use every source he found first. The first things I saw were what I was using, and I wasn't really letting myself get farther and farther down a search phrase like Google page. So there could have been so many sources that I could have used for other essays in high school, middle school, projects in elementary school that I wasn't letting myself get out of my bubble, reach out of my bubble for, It's just a bad habit. It's something that you don't want to make a normality, and I'm trying not to make it a normality. The titles draw me in. I'll be honest, the titles draw me in. That's what gets me, And I'd say the biggest takeaway from this assignment is just to read every source to see if it's a good fit and go from there. Because that's really how you're going to find your sources. You have to read everything, see what source it's coming from. Every aspect of the article is what you need to focus on, not just the title. Thank you.